Welcome to Off the Shelf, where we take you on the most spectacular adventures, talk about salacious romances, dive deep into the latest true crime, and break down the most anticipated memoirs. Hey y'all, welcome back to Off the Shelf. On today's episode, I am thrilled that we were able to grab her before she goes on another book tour. Please welcome Elena Armas, who is the author of such a beautiful book. If you haven't read it, go read it. So definitely pause this, called The Spanish Love Deception. And that's just one of her many. So we are so excited to have her on Off the Shelf. Elena, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. The pleasure is mine. I'm super happy to chat, all the things about my firstborn, my first baby, the Spanish Love Deception.
Yes.
So
Oh my God, that book. I mean, obviously we'll get to the questions and everything, but that book was, I think the best word is like delicious. It's so full of spice and flavor, but also that sweet romance and then that sexy. It definitely gave you a little bit of everything. You were never bored. I absolutely loved it.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I wish I could say those were all the exact emotions, I went through when I was writing, but I honestly don't remember a single thing from the process. It was like during lockdown and there was a lot of stuff going on. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm sure we will talk about it, but the book literally like flipped my life upside down. So yeah, it's all like a blank, but I'm very happy to hear that people enjoy reading it.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, just on that topic, you're a fairly new writer. You have, this is going to be the new one coming out, is going to be your third book.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
you have honestly taken this book world by storm. New York Times bestselling author. I mean, your audiences are raving about all of your storylines and the character choices you make with your characters. But tell us a little bit about how you even got here. How did the Spanish Love Deception come to be? But you as a writer, how did you get to this point?
Well, so I never studied anything, not even remotely, to writing or, linguistics or literature. I'm actually an engineer and I have a master's degree in chemical engineering, and I had a full-time job, and I was doing good. I was traveling. I was very happy with my career. But I basically spent all my time, all my free time, better said, reading. And one day I decided to start blogging about the books I was reading. So I transitioned to being a book blogger, and that somehow led me to believe that I could write a book on my own. So, I am not known for being super brave, but I am known for being sometimes a little crazy. So I just went for it and wrote the book. And a friend encouraged me to self-publish it. And I did that. And this little thing called TikTok, fell in love with it. And the book went viral overnight. And that was like the first domino piece that fell and, started the whole process that changed my life. But yes, that's a very summarized version of the events.
That's actually incredible. I went to like university to study nutritional science. I am
Mhm.
now an actress, producer. I love the book world. So that is not anything that I fell into at all either. It just kind of happened in my life.
Yeah.
I am similar to yourself. I'm by the book. I'm like, this is working for me. I'm doing well. Just keep going. But there was something in me that just said, just take a leap. Like, why not? And it
Yeah.
happened when I graduated college. I was like, I kind of don't have an actual direction at the moment. So just try this. And I think that that story is very, maybe it's common, but people don't speak about it a lot. So
Yeah.
the fact that, I mean, you are a full professional in the engineering world and started writing it. This but these stories, when I think of engineer, I don't think thematically how you wrote these books, if I'm being honest
Yeah.
with you. It is, they're so gentle in a way. You know what I mean? When I think of
Yeah.
engineer, very, very thought out, very mathematical, and these characters are not. So I'm absolutely impressed. That is a way to go into this career, because it's not something that you fell into because I've had years of thinking about this. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, it was everything very, I like to say that it was everything very improvised, like everything about it. From the point where I decided to become a book blogger and open an Instagram for books and a blog online, to the moment that I decided to start writing the book. I never I never set myself for any, I never had these
Huh.
big expectations. I never decided I was gonna do it with like a lot of plan, which is, as you say, is a little weird for someone who has such technical education. I was never like a super good engineer, I must admit. I was doing all right, but it was not my passion. But yeah, it all happened very organic and very like fast and very improvised. That is the word that I just used to describe it.
That's amazing. That's absolutely incredible. So why don't you briefly tell us a little bit about what the Spanish love deception is about?
Mm, this I'm not a big fan of this question, by the way. Let
Oh,
me
okay.
preface. No, I'm so bad at answering it. I will. It's always me just rambling for 5 minutes about the book.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try to keep it short.
Okay.
Um, so the Spanish Love Deception follows Catalina Martin, who is a Spanish young woman who's also an engineer and who lives in New York City. And her quest, to find someone to be her date to her sister's wedding in Spain. And that someone, I'm just gonna introduce him. That someone is Aaron Blackford, who is a colleague, someone that she thinks is a little bit of her nemesis, someone she's absolutely certain he hates her. And he overhears this conversation she's having with her best friend, her work bestie, and where she's like, "Oh my God, I need someone to come with me to Spain for this wedding." And he offers himself to be her date. And so, a lot of shenanigans, fake dating shenanigans, and wedding shenanigans, and trip shenanigans ensue. And yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it there for anyone who has not read it because there's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on. And as you're like talking about it, I'm over here just like smiling so big, because it's like you're taking me back through the story that I read and how good and fun it was. Now, I do have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
As a Latina book writer, did you write this book while you were in Spain? Why did you add that Americanized aspect? That intrigues me with writers,
Mm-hmm.
because even in the industry that I work in, you know, writers write what they know, or that's kind of the idea of that. And I always get so intrigued with writers who expand what they
Mm-hmm.
know and don't just stick to within the box of their limits.
So, to answer that question, I should say that I left Spain when I graduated from college. I was like, I'm out of here. I want the experiences, I want the travel, I want everything. And so I packed my bags and left with a scholarship that then led me to like a full-time job in Ireland. And then I just like kept traveling and working around. So all those aspects of Lena's character about her not being in Spain and having left, that's mostly drawn from my own personal experience, not
Okay.
the New York part.
Yeah.
Like the New York part was, I love to be honest, and I just picked New York because I thought it was a fun,
Yeah.
easy city to set
Mhm.
half of the book on,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
when you're writing your first novel, it can be very overwhelming. As much as I don't remember the whole like process of it, unfortunately, it was like a blur. But it can be very overwhelming, and you have to be, or at least I try to be smart on the choices, and I try to like minimize, you know, all that stress from like research and all these things that might be like overwhelming for you as a debut novelist or someone who is just like trying to write a story, no matter how long it is. So I picked New York because it was a city that I visited. It was a city that I traveled to. I've never lived there, but I loved it for like, I just love New York for a setting for a book, in the same way that I would always watch a movie set in New York City as well. Like, I think it's just there's magic
Yeah. Yes.
in it. So I just decided to make my life easier, and you know, focused on all those more personal things that Lena would go through,
Mhm.
um in regard to living abroad, to leaving her family behind, and to being like this young woman in a country that is not her country.
Mhm.
So that's my
So
answer.
that makes complete sense. I mean, first and foremost, I love New York City. Anybody who knows me knows it is so magical, and it re-energizes you in such a way that I cannot even explain it. Nicole was just there a couple of weeks ago for work, and she actually got the time, instead of just going with her,
Mhm.
clients for press tours, she got the time to actually see it. And she was like, I love New York. And I said, I know, I've been telling you this
Yeah.
for so long. It is so magical. And I love that you said it there. I think it is such the perfect setting for these types of meet cutes, these types of romances that lead to
Yeah.
whatever they lead to. Um, yeah, honestly, as I mentioned, this book absolutely stole my heart. And it it's one of the few books that, let me rephrase that. This book made me feel seen in a very unique way, and I'll tell you why. It honestly had me flipping through the pages so fast. My heart was beating out of my chest, and I've seen so many reviews saying the same thing, where they were like, I was anxious reading this. And you've been dubbed master of romance, with your first novel. And you bring us that dual character, irresistible slow burn. So what put you, as your first book, what brought you um to this genre? What allowed you? Was it just all the books that you had read and you were like, I want to see something a little bit different but stick to what I know? What brought this genre about for you, especially after coming out of that engineering mindset?
So I fell in love with romance as a reader, and during my blogging times, as I like to call them, I fell in love. Like, I was just absorbed
Mhm.
by romance books. Like, it was all I was reading. I was reading a lot of them. Like, I was a very, like, I would spend all my free time reading, and 95% of those books were romance. um Before that, I had read like a little bit of everything. I have always loved like a good young adult fantasy novel. I think there's so much to to take from them, but the romance genre in general, I think, is just like, I don't know, it for me is like food, is air, is just it what feeds me and what makes me escape reality. So having read so much, when this idea for like a Spanish heroine that would travel back to her country and encounter like all these, you know, all these experiences that I would read in romance books, when that sparked in my head, I was like, yep, no doubt, this has to be a romance book. And I kind of want to write it. So it was like a no-brainer. It was very, very, very like a very natural decision for me to go for it.
Yeah. No, and the thing is you should write it. It's only as authentic as you are, to be quite honest. And I love about this book and about stories like this. And just to back up a little, when I was talking about making my like how it made me feel seen, you know, I feel romance, small town books, you know, little community love stories, things like that. I feel seen in a lot of different ways. I am Latina, but I'm born and raised in southern Louisiana to Honduran parents, and I was raised in a very, I would say, unique way compared to other Latinos that I've encountered in my life. And I was raised in a community that was that had a lot of different, you know, cultures, I guess. It was white, it was black. So I never felt not seen in a
Hmm.
sense. So I can find myself in a lot of characters, even if that character doesn't exactly look like me. But if they have characteristics of what I've gone through, I'm like, oh God, I feel so close to this character. I love them so much. But this book, along with another book that is like kind of like you said, the air that I breathe, I I felt not only seen as a human, you know what I mean, like in character, but as who I was. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this book, but you probably have, reading so many romance novels. See Me by Nicholas Sparks also has
Hmm.
a Latina heroine. She's Mexican American. She's from the Carolinas. All of his books are, you know, based in the Carolinas. And that was the first book where I thought to myself, that is a Latina. He's never written a Latina character. And who she is, her Latinidad isn't labeled on her.
Hmm.
It's just a part of how she lives her life. But then she gets to do all these other things, you know? And I feel like you did that with Lena as well, where she's a Spaniard, but she's an engineer, she's a professional, she's a female in a man's world right now in New York. She's heartbroken, you know, she's just a woman with so many beautiful, multifaceted pieces to herself. And I was like, these are the stories that need to be out in the world, because I think Latinos get, and I think, you know, many Latinos are seeing that too. We're not one dimensional, you know what I mean? We're not just
Mm.
this type. We are just people, you know? And but the thing is, it's who is writing those stories and who is going to change the status quo of how these stories are told, you know? So funny story. After I read your book, I was like, how do I get the rights to this book? Like, how do I find it? And then I found out that it's, you know, going to become something. But either way, I think I have such a I'm such a fan of your book, but that just kind of that layer added to it, because I do think that there's not enough stories that are just people being people, you know?
Yeah.
And it is hard. I'm like, I don't know if there are other writers like this. Nicholas Sparks, a very white man, wrote this story.
Mm.
It made sense. I was like, oh yeah, this is exactly how our families are. And that's what I loved about Lena. You gave her, you know, la familia que tenemos todos, you know,
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
perfect. It was so accurate. I was like, I'm embarrassed because this is my tias and my
Yeah.
parents, you know.
That's literally my cousin. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I love that. And I just wanted to acknowledge that, because when I find something, and I think that's probably why I was so like, you know, just I want to talk to her. I want to know more of what made this happen. And that makes so much sense. You did get the opportunity to leave your country and see other parts of the world.
Hmm.
So you were able to take from your life, which is one of the questions on like how how close is this book to your life, you know? And as you said,
Yeah.
there are so many aspects that are you that you just put yourself into and tweaked a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And like going back to like first I want to say thank you because what you just said is like I'm getting goosebumps, like I'm not even joking. It's one of the biggest compliments that you could ever pay me, the fact that you were able to relate to a character that is so close to my heart, especially like not only Lena, but like also her family. And that was very, very intentional because as a reader myself, like I see the lack of diversity and representation in literature. Like I see that we're doing an amazing job and we're getting better and better, and I love that, but there's still a lot of work to be done. So when I had, this chance to, well, I didn't have the chance, I gave myself the chance to write a book. I was very intentional with my choices, and I decided, that I was going to portray this part of my culture and my life because I had never seen those little pieces on books before, and I had seen others that I couldn't know if they were realistic or not, and I had seen others who were like very stereotypical, which is something that happens more often than not, or that used to happen more often than not. So I just thought that a lot of cultures could relate to mine in a way that that goes beyond words, like just with all these like emotions and sentiments and just like a personal experience that I put into the book. I could speak to Hispanic families, and I could speak to Hispanic readers, and even some, actually I have a lot of readers from India that even could like can find certain things, and other cultures of course, but like that one just like popped into my head, that can feel like they can find like a lot of little things that they also see in their families, and like this very close family dynamic that we have, that you have with with your parents and with your family and with your community, and then I also had growing up. So the fact that someone reading the book feels all like everything that you described is just, for me, is just
No, and I think about my relationship with my husband. He is blonde hair, blue eyed, Caucasian male. And I think of Aaron Blackford and I'm like, that's exactly what it was like when he first came to this, my house. And he's at my quinceañera, and I'm like, this is overwhelming to all of these white people, in my party, but they, like, even the parents were like, this was amazing. I've never done this before. And, it was, our culture was represented. And we were just like, I mean, this is what we do all the time. This isn't,
This is us.
I'm like, this is a Saturday at my house at a barbecue. It's this loud and this vibrant and this, that this welcoming, this loving. So I felt for Aaron and I felt for Lena because I was like, I know exactly these feelings right now. I've gone through them almost, specifically. But speaking of Aaron, I I appreciate so much how you developed this male protagonist because he is a seemingly typical rich kid, like when you look at him
Mm-hmm.
at first, and then you're like, and like the strength that he has is honestly built on the back of the expectations of society, at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day. But you break him down like layer by layer, and you're just like, this cannot be. He is so perfect. And like he's just hiding behind this facade. I can't believe this. What compelled this breakdown for you? I mean, I think it's starting to make sense, you being in the engineering world, and you've probably seen this, right? That these people have like, oh, I have to put on this front in order to themselves seem successful. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But Tell us about beautiful Aaron Blackbird.
Yeah. I get a lot of questions and screaming DMs about Aaron Blackford. Still to this day, having another two books, but it doesn't matter. Um, so to put it simply, when I decided to write Aaron Blackford, I just set myself to write the most perfect fictional man that I could come up with. And I'm not even joking. I was like, listen, this might be the only book that I ever write. So I better make this count. And I gave Aaron Blackford all the things that I love in a fictional man, which you can tell when you're reading it because the guy is like immaculate. Like yeah. Like even I was realizing I was maybe playing a little, too hard with him. But anyways, so I think the magic of Aaron Blackford is in part, I think, is just because he it's what you said. It's like he's playing this part, like this role that he thinks he has to play in order to survive. He's just like getting by. He's not even living like a happy, life. He's just getting by because he thinks he needs to pretend to be somebody else for the world to see him in a certain way. I think that's like Aaron Blackford in the first chapters, or maybe even Aaron Blackford preceding that first chapter, in which he sees his chance and he's like, okay, I'll be your date to the wedding, which is the first line in the book. I'll be your date to the wedding. And you don't know what could have possibly come over him to offer that thing when you think, or when the reader thinks, and the protagonist of the book thinks that he hates Lena, and he's like, that couldn't be, farthest from the truth. He doesn't hate her at all. So I think the magic in Aaron Blackford is like these like his vulnerability coming to the surface slowly, very slowly, but he starts like open himself up, and you start discovering all these things that we actually want in a partner. Like, we want someone who listens, we want someone who pays attention when you're not telling them, hey, you should remember this. We want someone who makes little things like it's not like Aaron Blackford doesn't do anything super special or super like this. He never has one grand gesture. He's all these little things that go build, like that build up through the time and throughout the novel, that when you get to the reveal of his motivation to fake date Lena, you're like, oh my god, you're like, what?
Yeah.
Even if you saw it coming, it's just like this big climax of, wow, you're not a jerk. Like, you're the opposite of one. And yeah.
And like you said, it is such a slow breakdown, and I think that's very human when you feel like this is what I'm expected to be. Now how do you show the world how,
Mm-hmm.
or how vulnerable can I be without
Yeah.
getting hurt, without being disrespected, without, there's so many things that society kind of puts on you. And as he's broken down, you're just like, he is perfect. He, he is perfect.
He's also perfectly fictional.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. No, there are times when I read books where I have to like take a break, because I can, like you said, like you had said earlier, you just immerse yourself in this
Mm.
fiction and these worlds where my fiction starts to interfere with my reality. And then I'm over here, like telling my husband, why can't you do this? And why can't you be, you know what I mean? And I,
Oh, yeah.
no, like this isn't, it's not real, and humanity isn't this perfect. And, maybe there are men, of course. And, my husband has so many beautiful qualities about himself. But yeah, sometimes when a book takes you this deep, you are just like, you have to come out of it and be like, okay, that was just a book. Um,
Yeah.
because yes, but aside from that, I think just in life, humans to be able to break down those layers, because I feel like sometimes we have so many walls up in our life that we think, oh, this is what we need up in order to protect ourselves, to protect our heart, protect this. But really, it's like now you're not letting in um for lack of a better word, like the blessings and like the gifts and the opportunities, because you're so stuck, you're so behind this wall.
Hmm.
So it's like nobody even sees you anymore. So as like his bricks started to fall, and his wall started to crumble, I think that he allowed himself to be seen in a way where Lena also was able to break down her hard shell of what she thought he was and who she thought he was. um,
Hmm.
and you really had that like beautiful, like I said earlier, duality, um and it made it more fun and fiery and delicious to read as well. So
Yeah, it is a lot of fun to break down like a man on the page. Now
yeah.
that I've done that 3 times, there's nothing like getting, this character that you start with this character and it's like an egg or like an onion, right? And if it's an egg, you start like cracking the surface, the hard shell, to get to the gooey inside. And if it's an onion, you start peeling all the layers with the chapters. And I have to admit that as a writer, that's very, very satisfying to do that to a fictional character, especially the male ones.
Yeah.
I think because on the female ones, I think I reflect, like I tend to like dump my insecurities on
Mm.
them, so it's not so much fun to go through that journey. But well, having said that, all my characters have little pieces of me, even like in male, female, it doesn't matter, or secondary even. It's really hard to write something and not leave like these little things of yourself. um but yes, but writing like a male character like Aaron Blackford, it's very, very satisfying because you get to thrust him into these very challenging situations where he has to either flourish and show himself, or
Yeah, sink or
or
swim
yeah, exactly.
for
Think,
sure.
yeah, you either go to the bottom or you just swim.
Especially with these Hispanic families. You got to
Oh,
know how to do it
oh,
quickly, because they're
yeah.
like lions ready to like attack on their person. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
After, once you wrote this book and you were like, I'm going to do this, you saw it went viral. But even before, this whole TikTok fandom of it, what were you hoping for that your readers would get out of this book? What was that thing that made you tick to finish this novel?
I so I set myself like very different, like three different sets of expectations. Like the lowest expectation that I had was, okay, I self-publish it and it doesn't suck, right? Like which I accomplished. I reached that level.
Yeah.
Then like the middle set of expectations, or the middle bar was, okay, so I self-publish it, people love it and people read it and I make some money out of it. And the highest expectation was, okay, the book does well and I'm able to build a readership and eventually long term quit my job so I can do this full time, right? So it was like little steps that I set for myself, just to like control, not to let my mind fly too high. And that's probably something very analytical about what I did, that could come from the line of work that I was doing in that moment, like a little project. But yeah, so at the beginning it was like a mix between, the book doesn't suck because some people are loving it, they are liking it, it's getting good reviews, and I was getting like a good amount of sales that was making me happy. A little part of me was like, you know it was like sad because the book was like not doing well enough and not selling well enough, but I was very realistic with it. And to have a breakthrough with your debut when you're self-publishing is practically impossible. It's like catching lightning in a bottle. Like, it's very, very strange for that to happen. So I was happy, and my goal was to read a second book and self-publish it, and get this readership to slowly grow and build, and eventually become maybe a full-time author. That was my whole perspective when I discovered that the book didn't suck. um but then when this TikTok went viral, and the book entered like the top 100 Amazon overnight, and I saw like, sales spike up, and the hashtags and socials were also like growing super fast, and I was getting mentions everywhere. And suddenly, like, I think it was in the matter of a week, I was getting like emails from agents, hey, are you represented? And emails from publishers, hey, have you ever thought of going like traditional? I was like, what is going on here? Yeah, it was a bit of a what moment. But yeah, so far I completely forgot the question. I think it was
No,
something
that's
like
no, and that's part, that's part of it. I was saying, like, what do you hope, that your
oh yeah.
readership get from this story? But I mean, it's also that
Oh
like
my God, that was the question. And then I started like talking about
no, it's
yeah.
totally fine.
Yeah, so what did I hope? Yeah, so basically that's right. I had, I was thinking, you have a point, Elena, don't lose it. Yes, so I had a point when I started talking about that, but then because every time, like, I talk about the TikTok thing so much that I'm like, I went on autopilot.
Yeah.
Sorry. So what do I expect the reader to take, or what did I hoped for the reader to take from the story? Is I just wanted them to escape reality. And if I got like even a small group of people to say, hey, I freaking love this book and it was fun, then I would have been happy. Like, I didn't need, or I didn't think I needed any of this, because maybe I never like allowed myself to want it because I didn't think it was possible. So that's where I was going with the whole expectation thing.
Yeah.
I just like went to the other side, but
It makes sense. I do this all the time in interviews where Nicole, as my publicist, is like, you rambled for a little bit, but I was like, but I was always trying to get to a point. I would always have a point at the end.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me. No, but I think that's so beautiful. And as someone who did have a whole other career, just something so unrelated to the world of writing, that makes absolute sense. You were like, I'm going to give myself levels of expectation. This is my hope for what's to come. However, if this doesn't happen, then it's okay. But I did something that I loved and I tried it, without that fear or without that feeling of, am I even good enough? Let me put this on pause forever and never really know. You know what I mean? And I think I can relate to that so deeply, because when I decided to move to Los Angeles and basically tell my parents, I am so sorry, that my 4-year degree is just going to be put on hold. They were so incredibly supportive, and that's always been my family. So I was so grateful for that. But it took a while to get to where I am today and what I want to do. It wasn't an easy step, and it was scary to take that leap of faith.
Mm.
But I always think it's so incredible when people just take it, though, because now you have
Yeah.
no regrets. And I am so the person that is so adamant about living with no regrets. Like, I don't want to regret anything. And I don't want to feel some type of way about someone not allowing me to do something, so it's like I always have to like make that way for myself. um well, we know this book has been picked up. We know it's gonna become something, and I know right now in the world of striking, we can't really
Yeah.
too much on these projects. But I guess my question for you is, how excited or shocked or whatever that emotion was, especially after hearing, like, these were just, I just gave myself a few levels of expectation, and then somebody was like, I want the rights to this for it to become something else.
It was insane. But my whole journey with, ever since I self-published The Spanish Love Deception, my whole journey has been, it has been a trip. That's the way
Yeah.
to describe it.
Yeah.
Like, I think I landed very recently. Like, I've been only able to process everything like last month or something, that I was like, oh my God, I have a third book coming out. Okay, so that happened. So when I got this email from my rights agent about, hey, there's like a couple of producers that they would like to chat with you, it was like, no, no, they don't want to. Like, what are you talking about? This is just a little book that so it was a lot of excitement, but also a little of this feeling of, this cannot be happening to me, and I refuse to believe that it's happening until I see it actually
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
It was like that line of thought.
Yeah.
So as much as I love to talk about it, I'm still a little bit there, because I mean,
It's a process.
yes,
Yeah.
how things work. Everything is so secretive
Yeah.
and weird, to be honest. Everything
Yeah.
is so mysterious. And everyone sat me down to say, okay, so even if the rights are sold, I want you not to think about it, not even 1 second. And I want you not to obsess over it, and not to like wonder too much what is going on, and all that stuff that they tell you when they don't want you to, you know, um, overthink it.
Yeah.
So I am thrilled, and I would love nothing more than to see my characters on the screen. It would be a dream come true, and I think I will faint if that happens. I will pass out. My mom will pass out. Everyone in my family will pass out. It will be like like a whole Armas
Yeah.
meltdown.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but again, I'm trying to keep my feet on the ground and my head on my shoulders. And, as much as I have read the script and it's like super fun and amazing, and I think it would be great as a movie. um, I don't know anything about it, so
Yeah.
I'm just
It's a process.
hopeful and happy.
Yes. No, that's like that's the only way anybody can think, when you're producing anything. Um,
Mhm.
when I wanted to add another level to the things I wanted to do in my career, and production came to be, like I said, I called my team and I was like, we need to check the rights to this book, because I found your book last Spanish Heritage Month, which I think is in September, at Target. Like, they put a whole Spanish Heritage Month um, display out front. I found it at Target. I read the back summary. I was like, I have to grab this book. And I read it so quickly, and I said, how do I get the rights? And that's when I found out that it had already been picked up and, whatever. But funny enough, because I was having a whole bunch of general meetings, I met with Claude at BCDF.
Oh,
And
that's
I was like, it was the funniest conversation because he was so shocked. And I'm like, I'm kind of a new producer, but I also am an actor. I'm over here like pitching myself to this man. And I was like, I just need you to tell me like how I can be a part of this story in any way possible. So no,
oh.
he was so courteous and loving and wonderful. And we got to talking, and he's an incredible producer. I love so many of the movies. I love that he's an indie producer.
Mhm.
Has kind of stayed out of that studio world and can make movies that are just so feel good. And he does it so well. His company does it so well. So from what I know, you're in good hands. And I think that is the best place to be with the studio or, the production that you're working with. And
Mm.
yes, it takes forever to get to the end product, but I definitely think this is the type of story that you want out there somehow, some way, someday. Um,
I mean, it's bad that I say that too, but I genuinely believe so too, that I think it's a movie a lot of people would enjoy watching. And actually, when I talked, now that you mentioned Claude, when I had, because I had like a few meetings, and that this is insane that I got to pick who I wanted to sell the rights to. It's just bananas,
mhm,
to even acknowledge that out loud. But when I talked to Claude, there was something, that he said that it was just like an instant, yep, it's in good hands,
yeah.
that when I said that my only kind of condition, if it would ever be a condition, was that we needed, or the movie needed, the characters that are Spanish
Mhm,
to remain Spanish.
mhm.
He was like, well, yeah, of course, but that was not the reaction from everyone that I talked to,
Uh,
you know so for me it was like, yep, okay, so he gets it, right? Like they get it, like BCDF just got
mhm,
it,
mhm.
because it was like a no-brainer. It was like, yeah, well, yeah, of course.
That's
So yeah.
amazing. Well, I'm glad that you
So,
were able to speak that because now they know, like, this is my condition to move forward. Um,
yeah,
and that's always a great place to start. And
yeah.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this. Okay, so before we finish off here, I did want to mention September 5th, you have
Oh.
your new book out, which I'm so excited to read, The Long Game. Um, can you tell us something like in a sentence or two what this story is going to be about?
Yes, of course. So this is me dipping my toes outside the Spanish Love Deception universe. It's like a new story with a new cast of characters, new setting, new everything. It still is contemporary romance, and it still is a rom-com. So it's like nothing, super outrageously different. It's just a new world, and this story follows Adeline Reyes, who is like, a soccer executive from Miami. She's Cuban American, and she messes up. She has a little, I don't know how to say it. She is caught up on video, having a little bit of physical encounter with the team mascot of
Oh,
the mascot of the team that she works for.
uh-huh.
And the whole thing goes viral. So her boss, who is also her father, decides to send her off and get her out of the way and send her out of Miami, to a little town in the middle of North Carolina. And she's tasked with, the challenge of, taking the local soccer team to new heights.
Mm,
And when she gets there, she finds two different things. One thing is that the local soccer team is, an under 10 girls team. So it's basically kids. And the thing number two, in this small town in the middle of nowhere, North Carolina, there's also a retired soccer star from Europe, Cameron Caldani, who used to be a goalkeeper and has disappeared mysteriously. And he's there, but no one knows who he is. And it looks like he's hiding. So they are forced to work together and live next door and work on this team of little kids. And yeah, let's say that their meet cute is not a meet cute, it's a complete meet ugly. And and yeah, it's a lot of fun. It has the sports element, which I had never done. I mean, not as much as with this book. And we again have like this multicultural aspect with the characters, and it's still a slow burn, is fun, is a little ridiculous, like I like it. It's also spicy, and I'm very excited for the world to read it.
I'm so excited. And I actually love that you incorporated soccer. That is very our culture to, you know, have that within our storyline. So I am thrilled. When we were looking for writers for something I'm doing that we can't talk about. Anyway, there was a soccer story. One of the writers had a soccer story, and I thought it was done so beautifully and so elegantly. And I am so excited for this book. I cannot wait to read it. We're absolutely going to have to bring you back on to talk about it, because I know it's going to be another phenomenal book and bestseller. But yes, thank you. Thank you again so much for being here with us. Thank you for taking time out of your day in another country to sit with us on a Monday evening for you. And yes, we will absolutely be in touch, because I'm such a fan of your work. So again, everyone, if you have not read The Spanish Love Deception or any of Elena's other books, please go read them right now. Pick it up. They are fantastic. They're quick reads. You're going to absolutely fall in love. Follow her. We'll add all her information when this video is posted. But again, thank you so much for being with us on Off the Shelf, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. And guys, if you pick up my books, my DMs are open for all the screaming, so you know what to do.
All right. Bye, guys.